With outstretched arms, I reach beyond the hills and valleys we once called home, seeking a new way, a new dawn, one breath, one space, one hope. That sounds beautiful, doesn't it? Hopeful, noble, even poetic. But like many lines from history, it's a double entendre, a phrase that wears a mask. Behind its soft syllables lies a hard truth. This line has echoed before, on the lips of colonizers, emperors, and genocidal regimes. This isn't just poetic prose, it's manifest destiny, it's Lebensraum. And today, it's Harchavat Hitnachaluyot, the expansion of Jewish settlements in occupied Palestinian territories. This isn't to equate the policies, but to recognize a troubling echo in the underlying logic, that one people's security demands another's displacement. While vastly different in scale and intention, these policies share a common linguistic ancestry, making space for one people by displacing another. Let me be clear, this is not an attack on Israel's existence or Judaism. This is a call to examine a policy, Harchavat Hitnachaluyot, through the lens of historical warning signs that repeat when trauma becomes doctrine. This critique comes from within the Jewish ethical tradition, rooted in Torah, memory, and the prophetic demand that we never use past suffering to justify present injustice. Within Israel, many Jews, Orthodox, secular, Mizrahi, Ashkenazi, young, old, have raised their voices in defense of Palestinian rights. This is not about left or right, it's about right and wrong. Depending on where you stand, this looks like return or removal. So what happens when a beautiful phrase cloaks ugly intentions? Let's pull back the curtain. These are not ancient sins to be forgotten. They are living lessons. Every generation inherits its own version. Ours is simply better disguised. My name is Scott Layton, still doing faceless videos. Want to lose another 20 more pounds before my big reveal. I'm white, a Roman Catholic, and I'm in my mid-50s, and my family has benefited from colonization and slavery, like many others. My family tree includes Abraham Lincoln and Thomas Stonewall Jackson. Like most of America, my first impressions of the world were through film and television. The most moving and chilling television I ever watched was a scene from War and Remembrance, where Aaron Jastrow, on the night before many of his fellow Jews were to be sent east the next day from the World War II German Nazi concentration camp to Theresienstadt in modern-day Czech Republic, Aaron gave the most eloquent sermon on Job I have ever seen, juxtaposed by scenes of scared and dignified and noble people, humans, who may have just seen their last sunset. It still makes me cry. How can anyone be treated like that? Job. Yes. Eof. The ancient Hebrew man whose name has come to symbolize the deepest mystery of human suffering. In that scene from War and Remembrance, Aaron Jastrow stands at the edge of the abyss in Theresienstadt. The night is thick with unspoken dread. And yet, he dares to give a sermon, not of anger, but of reflection. He invokes Job not to answer why, but to affirm that suffering, even senseless suffering, cannot destroy dignity. Job was blameless. He did nothing to deserve what happened to him. And still, everything was taken. His children, his home, his health, his hope. And when Job finally breaks and demands an answer, God responds, not with comfort, but with questions. Where were you when I laid the foundations of the earth? In that answer, cosmic, overwhelming, we hear something deeper. Suffering is not proof of abandonment. It is a place where faith and rage, grief and hope coexist. Aaron Jastrow, like Job, didn't find meaning in the pain. He found meaning in remaining human inside it. And that's what terrifies me today. Not just the suffering we remember, but the suffering we stop seeing. Because if we look away now, from checkpoints, from razed homes, from scared children, then we have not truly learned from Job, or from the Shoah, or from any of the horrors that continue to haunt us. The question isn't why do the innocent suffer? We may never know. The question is, what do we do when they do? So when I speak of settlements and displacement, I don't do so lightly. I do so remembering Jastrow's voice, and Job's silence, and all those who were made to suffer and never should have been. The idea of more space has long been used to justify imperial expansion, not for the sake of peace, but for the sake of power. In Nazi Germany, Lebensraum meant clearing entire populations through war and genocide to make room for the so-called Aryan race. In the 19th century United States, Manifest Destiny rationalized the violent removal and slaughter of Native Americans in the name of progress and providence. When we hear the phrase, "a land without people, for a people without land," we must ask who decides who counts as a people? This same logic, used by empires throughout time, resurfaces in our era through Israel's policy of Harchavat Hitnachaluyot, the expansion of Jewish settlements in the West Bank, and formerly in Gaza. This is not an indictment of Judaism, nor a denial of Israel's right to exist. It is a moral inquiry into a specific policy, and the historical patterns it may be echoing. Framed as strategic development or religious fulfillment, settlement expansion is carried out in defiance of international law and with devastating consequences for Palestinians. Homes are demolished, families are displaced, and communities are split by walls, checkpoints, and fear. Palestinians are not merely caught in a conflict, they are a stateless people under occupation, denied basic rights, mobility, and sovereignty. Some have supported Hamas. Others just want to know that when they close their eyes, their loved ones will still be there in the morning. At first glance, Harchavat Hitnachaluyot may look like bureaucracy, but it's not. It's a slow, deliberate erosion of a people's right to live freely on their own land. So who gets to claim space in this world? And at what cost? Here's the part that stings. The victims of one of history's most horrific genocides, the Jewish people during the Holocaust, are now implicated in policies and actions that mirror the ideological patterns of their oppressors. No, the Israeli government is not enacting a Holocaust, but it is practicing what many human rights organizations, including Amnesty International and Human Rights Watch, call apartheid, displacement, segregation, systemic inequality. As Holocaust survivor Yehuda Elkanah warned, the lesson of the Holocaust is that it should never happen again to any people. Or as Hajo Meyer, a fellow survivor of Auschwitz, put it, only those who understand the pain of others can prevent atrocities. These are not just warnings from others, they're principles we hold ourselves. This critique of policy is not an attack on people. It is an extension of that same promise, never again, for anyone. Harchavat Hitnachaluyot is different from Lebensraum. This is not the same. The foundation is different. The scale is different. But the logic feels hauntingly familiar. This land is ours. They do not belong. There are many Israelis who also recognize these patterns and courageously resist them, from rabbis to former soldiers, from B'Tselem to breaking the silence, to name a few. And let us be clear, there's a difference between Judaism, a rich, ancient tradition rooted in ethics, justice, and sacred memory, and the actions of any particular state. To be clear, this is not a blanket indictment of a people, faith, or nation, but a call to scrutinize how selective framing and trauma-born ideology can obscure the suffering of others, even within cultures rooted in rich moral traditions. To critique injustice is not to deny a people's right to exist. It is to defend the right of all people to live in dignity. How did we get there from never again to not in my backyard? When trauma is left unprocessed, it can mutate into ideology. What happens when a people shaped by suffering begin to inflict suffering in the name of survival? Last year, we released a full-length documentary, The Holocaust and Rejection of Anti-Semitism and Racism, exploring the history, trauma, and moral legacy of the Jewish people. From ancient Israel to Auschwitz, we made it to honor the victims, to tell the full story of Jewish resilience and diaspora, and to make one thing clear: There is only one race, the human race. And this isn't exclusive to Israel. This is a universal truth. Nations that expand through fear and violence believe they are creating security. They aren't. Fear-based expansion creates only more fear. Fear makes bad maps. It redraws borders around paranoia, not peace. It builds walls taller than hope and calls them safety. But safety born of injustice is not security. It's siege. The Nazi regime claimed it needed Lebensraum to secure the future of the German people. The US claimed it needed the frontier to manifest its destiny. Israel claims it needs settlements to ensure its survival. Every wall built on injustice becomes a shrine to fear, not peace, but paranoia. Every settlement, a scar that deepens the wound. When people inherit generational trauma, it can become armor. But when armor hardens into ideology, it can blind us to the suffering of others. Empires that try to secure peace through domination always discover that fear is a poor foundation for stability. You cannot build trust through suppression. You cannot create peace through apartheid. Science has settled it. Humanity is one race, genetically 99.9% the same. Our biological differences are negligible. Our spiritual and emotional capacity is shared. So why, time and again, do we divide ourselves into tribes, factions, enemies? Because fear is easier than understanding. Power is easier than compassion. But the ease of those paths leads us to suffering. The Renaissance spirit teaches something else. It teaches us that human history is a shared dialogue, not a battlefield. It reminds us that knowledge, reason, and empathy are tools of unity, not division. We can choose a different path. Thank you for watching. Our channel, known as the Renaissance Spirit, is dedicated to the pursuits of a just, equitable, and humanitarian world. Video topics encompass areas including history, politics, religion, personal development, society, culture, social and environmental justice, and other liberal arts and sciences, including ancient Rome and the Roman Empire, which offer great comparisons and contrasts to the modern world. These are topics perfect for the true modern polymath. Living the Renaissance spirit means engaging with history not as a distant past, but as a living dialogue, constantly informing and enriching our present. The Renaissance spirit is a reminder of our dialogue with the future, our progeny and posterity, our legacy. Will we grant them a future free from the fear of climate change and tales of the end of democracy? Will they admonish us for our sins and omissions, or remember us fondly as saviors of humanity and the natural world? Judaism teaches that to remember is not to dwell in the past, but to choose the future. Zachor, remember, is the most repeated commandment in the Torah. Why? Because memory is not passive, it is action, and justice is the highest form of memory. Perhaps one day, a Palestinian child and an Israeli child will stand side by side, not as rivals in inherited trauma, but as stewards of a shared future. That day will not come from domination. It will come from justice, from memory, from courage, a new renaissance from the ashes. The Renaissance ushered in a golden age and the pursuit of knowledge, knowledge both lost to time and yet to be discovered. It gave birth to the Enlightenment and the Age of Reason. This isn't about choosing sides. It's about choosing justice, consistently, wherever we see injustice, embracing truth, knowledge, and an understanding and compassion for humanity. And our shared history opens up the world to each of us, individually, and improves all of humanity, affording us the opportunity to be better stewards of the earth and to each other. The Renaissance spirit, more than just a philosophy or style, but a style for living, learning, growing, and thinking. Yes, Israel faces real threats, rockets, terror, incitement. It's not imagined. Hamas must be stopped. But security bought through dispossession is not sustainable. Security. The way forward is not domination, but dignity for all. This isn't both sidesism. It's a demand for consistent moral clarity. Nor is this as false equivalence. It is a call for principle consistency, especially where power is uneven. As Palestinian writer Raja Shehadeh once said, It is not the land that belongs to one people, but the future. And only justice can unlock it. Please subscribe, turn on notifications, share, and take our quiz next to see if you're a Renaissance spirit. Live the Renaissance spirit. History has not died, only our understanding of it. With outstretched arms, I reach beyond the hills and valleys we once called home, seeking a new way, a new dawn, one breath, one space, one hope. That sounds beautiful, doesn't it? Hopeful, noble, even poetic. But like many lines from history, it's a double entendre, a phrase that wears a mask. Behind its soft syllables lies a hard truth. This line has echoed before,